Welcome back to another GTN Coach's Corner, where we answer all your training related questions. In this week's show, replacing running with swimming or strength work.
Why don't elite triathletes breathe bilaterally?
How do I know I'm ready for a 70.3?
I am slow. Do I still need carbon shoes?
And how do I do swim sessions in a 91 meter long pool? Very specific question there. Let's get to those answers. Okay, straight into the questions. Our first one is from David Jenkins, and he says, "Hi, GTN Coach's Corner. Thank you for all your content. I'm 39 years old and I've run all my life, completing half marathon distances. Last year, I set myself a challenge to start doing triathlons, eventually building up to an Ironman. I did a duathlon last October just to give me a taste and really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I broke my leg in November in a motocross accident." Wow, if you're a triathlete, what are you doing motocross? Stop doing that silly sport. Yeah, sorry you broke your leg. Anyway, my question is, I've booked on to an aquabike sprint distance in 10 weeks. Should I use a sprint triathlon training plan and change the runs to strength training, or maybe add an extra bike or swim sessions? Well, yeah, as I say, I hope you're healing well and you're getting back into it. Clearly, you can't run yet. You can substitute your runs for strength training in a standard sprint distance triathlon training plan. The problem is you've probably got 2 or 3 runs a week in there, and you probably don't need that many strength sessions in that week. That may be pushing a little bit too much. However, on that note, if you've broken your leg, you should probably have some rehab exercises, which you could be doing in the running stead, and you should definitely be doing those because you don't want to be carrying a imbalance for the rest of your triathlon career. So make sure you're rehabbing that leg that you broke as best as possible in this time where you're not running. But then when it comes to adding in swims and bikes in place of those runs, you can. Swimming and biking is, well, swimming is non-weight bearing and biking is only partially weight bearing. So there's less injury risk in adding extras of those, especially if you're a weaker swimmer. Adding an extra swim a week or even 2 swims a week will make a big difference to your performance when it comes to starting the full triathlon again. And yeah, the aerobic fitness will help when you do start running again. So definitely do more swims. Be careful of doing too many strength sessions and replace those runs though.
Yeah, I would say see it as an opportunity. It's frustrating you can't run, but you can really build on those other 2 sports that are the best 2 in a sense to up the mileage on, and it'll stay in the bank when you do then drop them back down and introduce the running. So yeah, you've got the right idea there for sure. Right, this next one is going to be an answer for James. You don't have to answer in 60 seconds, so listen carefully. It comes from Wojciech Bush, and they say, "I've taught myself a few years back to breathe bilaterally while swimming every 3 strokes. While watching the Super League, I've noticed that most of the swimmers breathe only to one side every 2 strokes. Is that because when you go hard, it's better to breathe in more often to keep the oxygen coming? And therefore, should we breathe bilaterally for lower intensity efforts and aim to breathe every 2 strokes for the max or near max efforts?" Well, basically, James, the question is, should you breathe bilaterally or not?
Well, 60 seconds. Here we go. The answer is you should breathe bilaterally, but when you're swimming really hard, it's really hard, and that's why the elites don't breathe bilaterally when they're racing. Breathing bilaterally, you simply cannot get enough oxygen breathing every 3rd stroke. So when you're swimming really hard, you're going to breathe only on one side. However, when you're training and going at lower intensities, it does balance out your stroke and help with your stroke balance to breathe on both sides, to breathe bilaterally every 3 strokes, or even to just alternate the side that you breathe on every length or every couple of 100 meters, just to make sure that you are balancing out your stroke and one side is not getting dominant over the other side. So you should breathe bilaterally in training, but in racing, you're probably not going to breathe bilaterally. And that extends to even triathlons, which are longer and slower. You can breathe to one side for 100, 200 meters and then switch to the other side. And that also obviously gives you the option of, if the chop is coming from one side, to breathe to the other side because you're comfortable doing that.
Spot on and very thorough. I like it. No more to say. That leads us on to our next question. 123 Davia says, "What are good benchmark tests to tell you're ready to complete an Ironman 70.3 with, say, 1 month to go? I've recently had a back injury and COVID and interested in what indicators I could use as key points over my remaining 2.5 months of training to tell me when I'm ready." Oh, well, yeah, it is a common question. I think all of us naturally have that fear going into a race of, am I ready or not? I mean, the fact that you've now got 2.5 months still to go and you've hopefully recovered from those 2 things, You will be ready if you're following a plan, but yes, there are certain markers and they vary for each of the disciplines. Depends where you're at already, but I know the swim is a big fear for a lot of people of being able to do that. And that's actually the best one and the most important one to cover the distance in training, because it's not going to take too much out of you. It shouldn't leave you with any soreness, so to speak. It's not impact. So you do need to try to test to see if you can swim that full distance continuous in the pool. Hopefully your sessions will be getting up to that distance anyway. If that's still a bit too much and maybe you need the assistance of a wetsuit, you could do it broken. So an example could be 4 lots of 500 meters. Yes, that's 100 meters over, but you get the idea with just a small amount of rest. So you're breaking it down mentally to get through that. Do you want to talk us through the bike options,
Yeah,
James?
the bike, you can also, it's like the swim, do the full distance before race day. It's not going to take too much out of you, and it's not going to affect your training too much, so you can test it. You're probably not going to do it at the full race intensity, but you should kind of simulate the race as far as what you're eating and drinking, and then go through the full distance, just to give yourself that confidence that you can do it before race day. It is good for your confidence to cover those distances in the swim and the bike before race day without taking too much out of yourself. However, you can't actually know whether you can get through the full distance before race day until race day, and if you could, well, there wouldn't be much point in doing the race, would there? So when it comes to the run, you can't. Don't try and simulate the race. Don't try and run a full 21 kilometers before race day, because it's simply going to take too much out of you. You're going to take a long time, a good few days, even a week or two, to recover from that long, hard run at race pace or that race duration. And it's just not going to help you when it comes to the race day. Chances are you won't feel great through it, and it'll actually erode your confidence rather than build your confidence. So swim, yes, simulate the race distance. Bike, yes, simulate the race distance. Run, don't simulate the race distance. Get up to maybe 16 to 18 kilometers if you're training for a half Ironman, and stop there. Don't do any more than that. Trust your training program. Trust that when you get closer to the race day and you've tapered a little bit and you've done all that mileage, it will translate into a race day performance and you can get to the finish line.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think if you're just wanting to get a bit more of a feel of what it might be like on the race, you can concentrate on doing some of your brick runs at your race, your intended race pace as well. Again, not obviously up to that distance, but just getting the feel of what it's going to be like on race day of actually trying to run that hard after one of your longer bike rides.
Yeah, again, on brick sessions, you don't want to take too much out of yourself. So either shorter bike and slightly longer run, not race distance, or longer bike with a fairly short run off it, just to simulate that race without actually taking too much out of yourself. All right, on to the next question, and it's from Yoshida Noburu. He says, hashtag GTN Coaches Corner. All of the reviews of carbon shoes look at fast paces like 4 minutes a kilometer or faster in order to get the full benefits of the technology. Do these shoes help more average running paces of 5, 6 or 7 minutes a kilometer, or are we all just wasting our money? Well, this is true. Most of the data does lean towards the faster runners, the elite runners, the under 4 minutes a K runners for these carbon shoes. And I guess that's because that's where the running companies want their fast shoes to be, on the fastest feet. The reality is that even though those original Nike Vaporflies were only really tested on the fastest runners, they kind of were, these will only be for the elites. They have since found that they actually are faster for everyone across the board, no matter how fast or slow you run. The factor that makes a difference is not actually how fast you run, it's how the shoe matches with your stride or your stride rate or your stride style. Some people are what they call responders, and some people are what they call non-responders. And even if you're running 7 minutes a K, a responder can get 5 or 6% efficiency benefit from these carbon shoes, even at those slow paces. A non-responder, on the flip side, could get no benefit whatsoever, or even 1 or 2% benefit from them, regardless of how fast he's running. Even if he's running really fast, he can still get only 1% or none out of these shoes. So it more depends on how the shoe complements your running style and complements your foot strike, rather than the speed you're running. So to answer your question, everyone is going to be faster in the right carbon shoe for them, and therefore you're not wasting your money. However, if you buy the carbon shoe that doesn't match your stride and help you, then even if you are running under 4 minutes a K, you're probably still wasting your money.
I think you're asking this question at a quite interesting time when there is now so many brands doing carbon shoes. So 3 years ago, you were quite limited with what was out there. Now there's such an array, even within brands doing shoes, that you'll watch some your pro athletes actually choosing different shoes within one brand because of what suits them. So even those really fast runners are finding different shoes suit them. So it might be a matter of going to a shop, trying someone, speaking to the experts with that, and yeah, sort of working out what your goals are and knowing your run style, so to speak.
Yeah, we did a video on this, the truth behind carbon shoes. We'll put a link in the description down below if you want to go and watch that. It is quite interesting. The reality is, and the final point of that video is that if you really want to know whether this particular shoe you have is working for you, the only way to really know that is to go do efficiency tests on a treadmill, which is obviously not practical for most of us. But if you feel like your shoes are helping you, then they probably are, even if you're only running 6 or 7 minutes a K.
Yeah. Right, well, that leaves us with our final question from Mez van Sluggeren. And they say, thanks so much for your videos, so supportive. Well, a noob question alert. I'm not quite sure what that is. Anyway, I started learning... Newbie person? Okay,
not done
right.
with the lingo, Heather, isn't
I'm obviously not. Sorry, back to the question. I started learning front crawl last October and have finally progressed to a level where doing actual swim sets is more useful than simply trying to get to one end of the pool. In my defence, I swim in the Lido in Cambridge and it's 91 metres long. Okay, that's
getting to the end of the pool is quite a challenge then.
I've recently started making it to the end. Cool. Well, my question then, a lot of training sets that I find are based on a 25-metre pool. Should I simply extrapolate this to a length? It's a little unnerving as the drills are based on, say, 50 metres will only get me just over halfway. For example, 450s with 10 seconds rest. I'm unsure how to scale this up to the length of pool I'm in. Any suggestions?
Wow, 91 metre pool.
That's a giant pool.
Yeah, that's challenging for sure. Obviously, it's not ideal to stop halfway through the length, and it's not to fit your 25-metre session or 50-metre session into a 91-metre pool. However, there are a few things you need to be aware of when you're extrapolating out to this pool. You can't just, if it's calling for 450s, you can't do 4 91 metres because it's going to be a very different session. And similarly, when it comes to drills and stuff, the reason that drills are set, it's 25 metres of drill and then 25 metres of swim or a rest, is because you need to do your drill with good form. And if you do it for too long, if you do any drill for too long, no matter how good you are, your form is going to start falling. And as it starts failing, you're actually not reinforcing a good stroke at all. You may be even doing worse and reinforcing a bad stroke. So you need to do your drills and stuff in short bursts. And if you're doing them in short bursts, that's hard to do in a 91-metre pool. Now, I'm not sure what the solution for you particularly is going to be. It may be to just swim 25 metres of drill and then turn around and gently come back, or just do 50 meters, or if it calls for 50 meters, and then pause in the middle if that's possible, if there's a lane rope to hold on or something, or to swim 50 meters of drill or 50 meters of whatever effort is, and then do really easy in the rest of the way of the length before you start again. You do have to compensate for the fact, but be very aware that you can't do 25 meter reps that are set in your program as 91 meter reps. They are very different energy systems. They're very different. They're going to have a very different effect when you start swimming 91 meters at a time instead of 25 meters at a time. Mostly because swimming is a technique-based sport, and your technique starts falling or failing after about 25, 50 meters, then you're reinforcing bad habits.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you just got to be sort of mindful of this and approach it, but actually you're really lucky to swim in a big pool. And there's a lot of people that be envious who are stuck in, say, a 20-yard pool, and in the long run you'll be getting more benefits from it. It'll translate much better to when it comes to open water. And if you do want just to help with the maths when you're just looking at bigger sessions, and I would suggest that rounding up to 100 meters if you're following a session is not going to be a bad thing, because when you take out the turns, it actually makes it feel longer, so to speak. The translation is slower. So yeah, if you're doing sets of 100, sets of 200s, I wouldn't get bogged down. I would just call it around 100 meters and you'll still be getting the very similar benefit.
Yeah, we weren't telling anyone it was only 91 meters.
Don't tell your watch, yeah.
I can't imagine a 91 meter pool though is heated. That must be freezing. That's all. I mean, I always think about cold when I think about swimming. So, anyway, thank you for all your questions today. I hope they've helped you. If they have helped you, hit that thumbs up button to support the channel. And remember, if you have your own training questions, in the comment section down below this video or any of our videos, use the hashtag GTN Coaches Corner, and we could be answering your questions on next week's Coaches Corner. See you then.